Okay, the next thing to remember is if I have a circle and I have a quadrilateral of any kind, it doesn't have to be a special shape. So something like this, A, B, C, D. Because this is not a parallelogram, this is a regular quadrilateral. And because it's in a circle and it deals with all the arc properties and all that stuff with inscribed angles, we know that angle A and angle C add up to be 180. Angle B and angle D also add up to be 180, making the whole quadrilateral 360. Then there are two formulas that you must know and must understand how to use, and that is area of a sector and arc length. Remember, a sector is like a slice of the pie, a slice of the cake, slice of the pizza, whatever. It is the central angle creates it, and it's just that piece of the circle. So it is the angle over 360, because that gives us the portion of the circle, times the area, or pi r squared. Arc length is very similar to an area of a sector, and that's why people get it mistaken. But remember, arc length is the actual length of the arc. So how long is this piece of the circle? That is still your angle over 360 because it is a part of the circle. However, in this case, it is times their circumference, because circumference is the length of the entire circle. So please make sure you have these in your brain and not mixed up, even though they are very, very similar to each other. After talking about circles, we started talking about trigonometry in the unit circle. You need to remember your trig ratios. So, SOHCAHTOA is good to remember. Some old hippie called another hippie tripping on acid is another to remember, because you might be asked for the sine, cosine, tangent of any type of triangle with the right angle in it. You also need to be able to graph sine and cosine and their transformations, and I'll talk about those. So if you remember, sine starts at 0 and goes to 1, 0, -1, 0. And it's periodic, so it completely keeps going on that wavelength. This is sine again. Cosine is very similar to sine, except for it is shifted a little over. So it goes 1, 0, -1, 0, 1. And again, it completes the wave as it goes along. You need to remember that in our formula, I'm just going to use C and D just to keep the letters in alphabetical order, but we normally say H and K. That A is our amplitude. Remember, amplitude is always positive. And then our B helps our period change. So remember, that's 2 pi over B. You will be asked questions for sure that ask you how long a period is, how big is the amplitude of a sine graph or cosine graph. So just remember 2 pi over B, or 360 over B if it is in degrees. Which brings me to converting. You will have straight questions that ask you to just convert. It'll say, convert this to radians, convert this to degrees. So remember, if we're going from radians to degrees, we multiply by 180 over pi. What that does in the conversion factor is it eliminates our pi if there's one there. So that eliminates the radian label and gives us the degree label. If we're going from degree to radian, we multiply by that reciprocal, which is pi over 180. This gives us the radian and takes away the degree label. Lastly, are coterminal angles. Remember, coterminal angles are angles that end up in the same spot. So 315 and -45 are coterminal angles. But you also have to be aware of if it's in radians. So what if I said 3 pi over 4 and wanted to know a coterminal angle? Well, a full circle is 360 or 2 pi. So I could just simply add 2 pi to this equation, which is the same as saying 3 pi over 4 plus 8 pi over 4, right? So 11 pi over 4 is a coterminal angle. If you are uncomfortable with this because of the fractions, convert this to degrees, add the 360, and then convert it back to radians. It'll take you a couple extra seconds, but it will still get you the exact same answer. The last thing that we talked about was statistics and kind of the sampling methods. You need to be able to do all of these. Tell the difference between the population and the sample. Remember, the population is the entire group, so like the entire school. The sample is a portion of that population, so our classroom is a sample. There are different types of sampling. Random, being completely random. There's no rhyme or reason to it. You're pulling names out of a hat. Systematic, there's order involved. The 5th person, the 12th person, whatever. Convenience is literally what it says. It's convenient to everyone. You're standing in the hallway asking questions. Self-selected is when you volunteer for it. You see an ad on TV, you call back, whatever. You see an ad in the newspaper, you call back. It is you deciding to do it. Then there's studies or observational, controlled in a survey. Observational, you're just watching and recording down any information that you see. Controlled is where you have your two groups. One group, nothing happens to them. They get the placebo. The other group gets the medication. They're the experiment group. And you compare and contrast the two groups. A survey, you just ask a bunch of people a bunch of questions. Random number table, be able to use these. These are your simulations. This is where you break up the number line, so you would have numbers in order, 5 numbers, you break them up into 2 digits and pick the first that are 1 to 25. Or you can use your calculator, remember math all the way over to probability. Option number 5 randomly generates integers. And lastly, your margin of error formula is 1.96 times your standard deviation over the square root of your sample size. And remember, that information comes from your calculator. Stat edit, type in all your data. Stat over 1 runs your normal statistics, your one variable statistics. Standard deviation is that little hat. X bar is your average or your mean, so that's how far away you're deviating from the mean is what your standard deviation means. And your sample size is nothing more than n. You will use these numbers, plug it in your formula, and then it just tells you how far off the average you can go. This ends the geometry section review. Please complete the practice. If you have any questions, please ask Ms. Lewis. The next few days, you will be going over the exam review packet, which has 66 questions on it that are very, very similar to what you are expected to know for your county-wide exam and the state final exam. Remember, you are taking 2 exams on your exam day. You will spend about an hour taking the county exam, switch over to a Chromebook to take the state exam. The state exam, you have 2 hours to take it, and it should not take you any longer than those 2 hours. Then you will go back to the county exam if needed to finish it up. If you have any questions, please take this last few days to get them answered by Miss Lewis or myself. You are welcome to email me at any time.